All right, let's get into gain, EQ. We talk about gain. Let's talk about levels, EQ, compression, and gates. So let's go to a simple microphone. I'll go to the kick drum. And again, when I tap it once, nothing happens. If I double tap it, that's where I can see the actual individual items for this thing. So the greatest thing that these digital boards have are preset playlists and preset functions. All of these little folders that are here inside of these things have presets, okay? So kick drum, it tells you here what channel you're in on the board, what input it comes in from the stage. Don't worry too much about that, but you can see input one's right here, input one. If I go to the patch bay on it, it'll tell me where kick drum is on this, it's right there. That's just how it's plugged in backstage or onto the stage. It's on input 25, but somehow it makes its way up here. This is all digital, so it doesn't have to go in order. If you want to click and move something, you can click and move something. I'll talk about that later. On this input though, you can see that we have the EQ. The EQ is how it sounds on your ears. You want it to make it nice and sound pretty. YouTube videos, cheat sheets, those are the best thing I think of. I'm not a genius on EQ or compression or gating. I'm just gonna tell you what it is. What EQ does is you can balance, like, you know, you have tone, mid, and bass, or treble, mid, bass in your car stereo. This is just a more scientific, exact version of that. You can increase frequencies, decrease those frequencies, increase the treble or high, decrease the treble or high, same thing with the mids and same things with the bass. Again, using cheat sheets and just kind of playing around, that's the only way to learn it. Just what sounds good to your ear is what you want. If you have a kick drum, you want a lot of thud, right? You want boom, 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 which means you want some low, right? Boom, 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 increased. You don't want really sound of tone, you want to kind of feel it, so that's why you have it increased, and that's why you send a lot of it to the subs. You also want to hear that little stick, the beater, hitting the kick drum, so that's why the highs are, so you hear that click. All right, so you hear thud, but also hear a little bit of like slap at the same time. You don't want to hear any notes or any muddiness, that's why everything in the middle is kind of pulled down. I didn't create this. I went to the folder on EQ, and I went to a kick drum factory setting. All right, past front of house engineers have saved settings on here. You can obviously go to those, but we have stuff that's saved here. All right, use those, that's great to use. So EQ, that's how much high, mid, or low sound comes into the mains, pardon me. All right, so next thing we have after EQ is compression. Again, I'm not the biggest genius when it comes to compression. I just know what it does. All it does is it takes all the sound coming through and it compresses it together. So loud sounds, if it's too loud, it's compressed a little bit. All right, it's compressed some, so it's squashed down, so it's not too loud to blow something out, right? Compression is trying to keep everything at the same volume. It's kind of like in the car, the like driving audio assist, where when you slow down, your stuff gets quieter, and when you speed up, your stuff gets a little bit louder, to try to keep everything on the same level, so you're not having to constantly play around. So if the drummer gets excited on a cool part, starts blasting those drums, this will do a good job of kind of squashing down some of those frequencies and some of those volumes to kind of keep everything at the same level. We're squeezing it, we're compressing it. Again, same thing. I went to the folder and I went to the kick drum pre-made setting. For the gate, this is another thing. Gate, what a gate does is it works exactly like a gate. A gate is a opposite of compression. Gates are allowing sound to come through, not squashing sounds down. Gates are really important for drums and piano. Acoustic instruments that are on stage. There's a lot happening in that little room. Cymbals, drums, tambourines, dropping sticks, all bunches of noises happening in there. We don't want other noises coming in on other mics. I want the snare coming through the snare mic. I want the kick coming through the kick mic. Same thing for overhead cymbals and toms. I don't want cymbal mics or cymbal sounds coming through the snare mic. I have the snare mic set up for the snare. So what happens is in the gates is it creates a, let me use the word threshold here, an amount of volume that once that volume is reached, that microphone as a gate opens up. That gate opens and allows that sound to come through. So because the snare mic is right next to the snare, well, when I whack the snare, I want that sound to come through it. All right. But the second I'm done hitting that snare drum, I want that volume to go away. So that gate is only going to open and close when I reach a certain volume on that microphone. That meaning some quieter other sounds that are adjacent or nearby, those sounds don't come in through that mic. So think of it literally as a gate, opening and closing for specific instruments. All right, we don't want cymbal mics coming through the kick mic, or cymbal sounds coming through the kick mic. We want to open that sound for the kick and close it real back for the quick, for everything else. Open, close. And so really it just works like that. That's why we have a threshold for how loud, the range of what sounds are allowed to come in, how quick it opens and closes. That's all that stuff. Again, I went to the folder and I clicked the drum one. And again, that's just trial and error. That's playing around. You'll see how that works usually. Okay. So that's all the bells and whistles for the soundboard. We do have a plug-in rack where you can go super in depth with some of the stuff. This is where the reverb is set up for the vocals. Again, if you don't really know what to do, I wouldn't play with it unless you do know how to deal with some of these specific functions. All right, let's go on here and I'll start a new video that's going to talk a little bit about, let's talk about making a good sound. All right, let's talk about making a good mix.